नमस्कार दर्शकों, आपका स्वागत है जयपुर डायलॉग यूएसए पे। मैं हूं विभूति झा। Just as always, I ask you, please like, subscribe, and support our channel. Press the bell icon so that you are reminded of whenever the show is coming up. Today, I wanted to talk to you about some very nice development that has happened in the US. Indian Americans, and specifically Hindu Americans, have begun the fight back. It's a little late, but as the saying goes, it's never too late. You got to get into action whenever time is required to do. Got to get into action. To talk about this matter, I have great privilege in welcoming two of my very dear friends whom I have known for a while. Professor Dr. Geeta Sikand ji, you are welcome to the show, Geeta ji, and Mr. Ajay Shah ji. Now, both of these people are outstanding warriors for our causes in this country. And I want to say this, Geeta ji has been outstanding with her writings in newspapers, with her organizational support that she takes up on her own without looking for any support, and she gathers support after that. So Geeta ji is also, a vice president of communication for American for Hindus, and she's also founder of Americans for. There was one thing which you said, Geeta ji. You are founder for Hindu Pact. No, that is Ajay ji is the founder for Hindu Pact. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. But American for Hindus, and you are a clinical psychologist in the university where you teach. So this is truly remarkable. Your fight is, I've seen it happen, and we have worked together on several issues. Ajay Shahji is the president of VHPA, Vishwa Hindu Parishad America, of which he will be the president up to 31st December. And he's also the founder of Hindu Pact. And he's also the founder of American Hindus Against Defamation. So these are issues that are very important. We are often branded. The one thing which angers me the most is that we Hindus are the most peaceful community in the world, professionals working hard, contributing to the communities we live in. We are never a law and order problem, but somewhere along the line, we are always a target of people. I don't need to name them. You know them. So, Geeta ji, I want to hit off with you today because you wrote some very interesting articles, two of them, and third one is coming shortly, about how Hindu Americans contributed to Mr. Trump's victory in this 2024 election. And obviously, the impact is very visible because so many Hindu Americans have been nominated by President to his cabinet in various significant positions. It's not an administrative role here and there, but significant positions, which has caught the attention of conservatives who have also begun to mention that Trump is hiring all the Hindus in this cabinet. Is it a Hindu American cabinet that is being assembled? So, Geeta ji, you start off on that.
Thank you, first of all, for having me on your show, Vibhuti Ji. Just one minor correction.
Yes, please.
I'm not a clinical psychologist. I'm a clinical lipid specialist and a registered dietitian nutritionist.
I apologize. Thank you very much. Yeah.
No worries. So let's start with my article, part one. We just published it a week ago in voiceofhindus.org. And in that article, I've talked about how Hindus contributed to Trump's triumph. And what I did is first I looked into what were our reasons for wanting to go with Trump and not with Biden, or now Harris, I should say, in the elections. And the reason for it was that actually there were few reasons. During the last 4 years, we have really been gaslighted by the leftist, Islamist, Marxist cabal. And how we have been gaslighted is, for the first part, I want to mention the Dismantle Global Hindutva Conference that they supported in 2020. And it was supported by 60 universities. All the leftist universities supported it. And it was totally gaslighting us like we're some oppressors and some bad people. And this was not fair. This was very unacceptable. We wrote to many universities not to support, but they didn't go there. Then the second thing that happened in 2023 was the introduction of SB 403 legislation, which was to target Hindus again. It was an anti Hindu hate legislation. And we all agree that caste discrimination is bad and no one should do it. And it was already covered in the Unruh Civil Rights Act in California. So there was no need to label us Hindus by using the word caste. That would be similar to using the word slave drivers or slave owners to every Christian who was talked about. Would that be fair? No. So we were being labeled, we were being targeted in this legislation. And the Democratic Party, supported by the socialist, progressive, extreme leftists, passed a resolution saying that we support this just because it had good optics, right? Whenever you say any kind of discrimination is bad, of course, we all agree. But to pass a bill like that would be discriminating against us Hindus, targeting us. So thankfully, Governor Newsom did veto it, but it was a very big struggle for us. And then after that happened the attacks on our Hindu temples in the last 2 years. And they just keep multiplying. They keep going on and on. They have still not been stopped. And this is from New York to California. And not one investigation has been done about it. So we are really upset, disturbed by the Biden Harris administration, totally. And so that's what we decided. And on top of that, I call it the leftist democratic media complex, which we also call the legacy media, and we also call it the mainstream media, refused to give us a voice. They just refused. I even arranged with LA Times that I would invite Sundar Iyer, who was targeted in this caste discrimination fiasco, and they refused to listen to his side. So it was like, no, we've made up our minds. You are the bad guys. The Hindus are the bad guys. So this is what I was a 40-year-old member of, for 40 years, I was a member of the Democratic Party. And I decided in 2020, it was time to leave when I saw the writing on the wall with what they were doing to us Hindus. So with that, I decided for me, and I found many fellow Hindus like me who were feeling the same way. We decided to support Trump. And thankfully, Trump, with this Bangladesh now Hindu genocide ongoing and accelerated since August 5th of 2024, not a single statement from Biden, not a single statement from Kamala Harris. And here we go. Trump made a very strongly supportive statement. And he said that the Biden-Harris administration has totally ignored the Hindus at the cost of what's going on. And if he was in charge, if this was under his watch, this would never have happened. And we are relying now and depending on President Trump, currently President-elect Trump, to come in and solve this issue for us, because we are really frustrated, exasperated, and just very, very emotionally down at this time to see our fellow Hindus, our kith and kin, going through this trauma. 28 million of them living in Bangladesh.
We will get back to the Bangladesh issue very soon. It's a part of the conversation today. Ajayji, I wanted to specifically talk about the Savera report, which virtually castigated us Indian Americans and Hindu Americans as evil. And they are using the instrument of democracy, freedom of speech, in such devious ways with false allegations. And in the AI analysis that you did, and I have the report with me, and please send it to me. We will put it up on the Jaipur Dialogue main website for people to have a look at it as to how the findings unravel. So Ajayji, welcome. And you have a multifaceted experience of fighting for Hindu causes. So go ahead and make your day.
So thank you, Vibhuti Ji. It's a privilege to be with you on this show. You do a wonderful job with the Jaipur Dialogue US, and it's our privilege to be here.
Thank
This
you.
is this is something that people who are who are Hindu haters, they do this for a living. And I I started my Hindu activism in early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, late 70s actually, and I started it in US in early 80s. And I can tell you that since the beginning of 1990s, if not earlier, uh, I think probably beginning of 1990s, we started seeing these kinds of reports coming out. And the fewer reports at one time, they started with attacks on organizations like IDRF, and then attacks on Hindu Students Council, and all elaborate reports. There are 30, 40 pages with 500 footnotes, and it would always seem to people that they're very well researched. And then the frequency increased, and now this frequency is probably around 2 or 3 or 4 a year. And this is in addition to all the research publications that they bring out. So these are the advocacy reports, and then there are research publications in peer reviewed journals. There are books that come out. So there's this whole ecosystem, if you will, of Hindu hatred. And it's almost a cottage industry of Hindu hatred. And so we said, okay, you can't really keep up with responding to these reports one at a time, because no, it's not physically, it is not possible unless you invest millions and millions of dollars like they do. So we have to be a bit smarter about it. So what we decided is that let's do a systematic. I'm getting some kind of an echo in the background.
Yeah, you are getting from your side. I don't know. It's not
It's like
from my.
a squeaky sound, a little bit
Yes,
squeaky
I'm
sound.
hearing. I thought it is on your side.
I'm not sure because
Gitaji,
my
if you mute it, let me see who is giving it. I'm muting myself to know whether it's from my side. No, we are okay. Go ahead.
okay. How about now?
Not there. So it was from your side, I think.
So you want me to start from the beginning,
No,
or
go
you
ahead.
can edit this out?
No worries. No worries about that. Carry on. We will
Okay,
take care of that.
okay. So I don't know. I use this all the time for our own shows and all that. Never seen this before. So okay, let me do one thing. Let me disconnect one thing that I have, and maybe it is the one, but I doubt if that is the one causing it. But let me disconnect it anyway. How about now? Still there?
No, it's not there now.
Okay. All right. So my apologies. So yeah, as I was saying, this is an ecosystem. This is almost a cottage industry, and they produce 3 4 reports in a year, maybe sometimes more. So we said let's take a more systemic approach to analyzing and seeing what they're doing. And what we said is like we have this new AI technology that is emerging. Maybe we can utilize this AI technology to analyze the report and really look for the markers of Hindu hatred. So really, as you can, if anyone who has been in healthcare field like Geeta ji would know, their biomarkers are very common. They are the indicators of a particular disease, and these are what we are calling these the markers for Hindu hate. And we said let's detect the markers for Hindu hate in the report. And so we started looking at the markers for Hindu hate, and we came up with multiple of these markers, and we categorized them into different categories. So, for example, we said, let's first look at the sentiment expressed in the report. So, we did a full sentiment analysis of the report, and the sentiment analysis told us that the sentiment in this report is really 83%. For example, the one that you are mentioned in Vibhuti, that's the one on BHP America. The sentiment is 83.3% negative, just towards Hindus and Hindu organizations in general. 83.3% negative. Uh, and then we looked at the biases that are inherent in it. So, for example, when you do sentiment analysis, you look at the key phrases and you say, well, this one uses phrases like global hegemony, or white supremacist far right, or far right movement, evasion and concealment, anti minority, spreading Islamophobia, transnational text, transnational access, supremacist action worldwide, blocking the global far right, those kinds of things. Then we did analysis of headlines and subheadline. Then we did analysis of how is the story framed, and we detected that they're using framing technique which has guilt by association, overemphasis on negative aspects, just the words that they use, absence of nuances, alarmist language. So, for example, they'll describe us with words like violence and supremacist and far right and all this. They contextual omissions. They have so many omissions that make the report very biased and hateful. And then they have presentation bias, the way it is presented. Then the order of information. They put the negative things they wanted to emphasize on in front. They do guilt by association. Those are the kinds of things. And then if you go keep looking at it, the word choices they have, a loaded language, repetition of all the negative association multiple times in the same report. And these are all standard scientific techniques, the way you would analyze any document for sentiments. They use adverbs and adjectives that are hateful towards Hindus and Hindu organizations. And then they have logical fallacies. So these are the and misleading statements. So they, for example, they have fallacies like guilt by association, straw man argument.
Give an example of the fallacies that they are talking about.
Yeah.
Give
So,
an
for
example of
example,
that.
they will
Yeah.
say that say for example, a strawman fallacy. So, by supporting Hindutva, the VHPA is promoting caste discrimination and Islamophobia. This is a strawman argument. It misrepresents the VHPA's objectives by oversimplifying or distorting their support for Hindutva. Now, Hindutva, we all know, is nothing but Hindu plus Tattva, the essence of Hindu Dharma. They ignore that, and the stated goal of and they ignore the stated goal, which is cultural and humanitarian work. So they build up this straw man that, hey, look, their whole goal is to support caste discrimination and promote Islamophobia, and then they criticize you for something that they put up as a straw man. Then they do, for example, another fallacy argument would be, um, you know, ad hominem attack. So, for example, they would say, predictably, the VHPA denies these allegations. Well, so this is an ad hominem, argument, right? Because obviously VHPA is going to deny the false argument, and then they come back and say, "Look, see, we told you that they're going to deny it." So that is an example of ad hominem fallacy. There could be slippery slope kind of fallacy. So if we don't act now, the influence of these groups will destroy our society. That is one of the statements. This fallacy suggests that an extreme or inevitable consequence, like societal destruction, without evidence to support any of the progression of the events that would lead up to it. So these are the kinds of things that anyone who logically analyzes these kinds of reports will say, hey, look, this is a slippery slope argument. There's nothing logical about this. So we have that. Then we look at all the misleading statistics, omission, cherry picking. So, for example, they would say that uh, Hindutva means fascist mentality. That's a misleading statistics. Hindutva and fascism, it's comparative bias as well. To compare without evidence or historic context, they just compared the two. So it's a cherry picking, misleading statistics, cherry picking the argument, and then there might be something like omission. So, for example, they would say that uh, you know Bajrang Dal's negative action received more media coverage than RSS positive work. And this ignores the extensive social and charitable work that RSS and related organizations do. So they basically ignore all the good in the society that RSS, BHP, Vanvasi Kalyana Ashram, Ekal Vidyalay, all of these organizations do. And they just say, oh, they are all out there to promote Islamophobia and tear down things and all that kind of stuff. We also have euphemism and dysphemisms, for example.
I will come to that in a moment. अजय जी, आपसे एक
Yeah.
रिक्वेस्ट था, आप अभी जहां पे भी, this is better. Stay as
Okay.
you are.
Okay.
Stay as you are. This is center. Okay.
Okay. All right.
This is a question to both of you, because this is a matter of concern. What Ajay ji was pointing out, that those people have money and they have been attacking us ever since, he says, early 90s, if not 80s, right? Ever since then, and you have been in actively fighting this entire thing for a long time. And you very rightly say that if we don't respond now, they will demolish us. So the response has begun to happen, and that's very positive. Now, tell me one thing. You said that they are using very sophisticated technology because they have money, the ideas, they are using that. We have so much of wisdom, so much of intellect, so much of knowledge. We are proud of our accomplishments because we work hard. How come we have not been able to collect money? How come we have not been able to put together a cogent response? And instead of that response happening in 2024, think about it from that perspective. So गीता जी, you say first, and then I will go to same thing. अजय जी, आप आपके response भी चाहिए उसमें. गीता जी, you first. You are muted. You are muted, Gita ji.
Yeah, so that's really a great question, Vibhuti. So, what I find is that among our Hindu community, they don't take what's happening to us seriously. They don't realize that something really bad is happening to us because they feel, oh, when I go out, everybody treats me fine. That's true. This is institutional Hinduphobia. And unless you take the time to study what was SB 403, what was dismantle global Hindutva, what was these attacks on our temples, they're not, in sync. So who will be the biggest donors of anti-Hindu hate? Hindus, right? So Hindus have to come forward and support all of our cash-strapped pro-Hindu organizations. So without that, how can we move forward and compete with these Qatar-funded, Islamist jihadist groups? We cannot compete. We just keep writing articles because we know there we can get our information out to the readers, to our fellow Hindus, and to the rest of our mainstream society.
Right. Ajay ji?
Vibhuti, it's not as much about the multiple factors here. So you have to look. If you look at the history of immigration that happened to U.S., the kind of people that came in the early, late 60s, early 70s, and even early 80s to some extent, came as students, came as professionals, and they were first generation, and they wanted to build their lives, their careers, their families over here in the US. And so they were very focused on building their lives and making progression in their careers and all of that, and they did not face the kind of challenges that we are seeing now. So what they did, they didn't put as much emphasis on building these institutions that you need. For example, you need anti-defamation league. That was established over 120 years ago. But we did not come from that kind of background. We did, but we were brainwashed in India by the JNU engineered education system. So when people came here, they said, "Look, I'm just going to progress economically, and I'm not. I'm going to blank out and put my blinders on, so I don't see anything else that is happening that is anti-Hindu." And so they did not put a lot of emphasis on building those kinds of institutions. The institutions that we built were around sanskar and seva. So we built balviars, we did camps, then we built mandirs, and then we did a lot of organizations that do seva activities, selfless service activities in US and in Bharat. So that has been our focus of the community focus. Then when people started getting established, they started putting money in become in political in political causes, but it was mostly driven by people who had money, who say, well, am I going to get a photo op with a particular politician or not? So the kind of, because people were happy in their job, because people were happy in their family lives, and they were doing well economically, they did not think that we are in dire trouble, and so they did not put money in the kind of institutions that we need to have to do advocacy. So this is a sign of a community that thinks that we are doing great. We really, why are you guys even bothered? So when Geeta ji, you, I, we go out on the and talk to 80% of the Hindus, and you can look at the surveys. 80% of Hindus says, "Why are you doing this? We are fine."
Yeah.
And that is why you don't see now. If we were facing the kind of situation that Hindus in, say, for example, Canada are facing, or Bangladesh are facing, or Pakistan are facing, then our community will say, oh, I'm in trouble. My family is in trouble. My kids are in trouble. They're not getting into school. My temple is getting destroyed every day, not 3 times, 4 times a year, but every single day. Now, community says, okay, you know what? Let me put money into advocacy organization. Maybe it's too late by then.
Maybe it is too late by then, but I'm glad you brought that issue of Canada and Bangladesh. And Geetaji, I wanted to say that I saw the morning tweet of yours in which you took the initiative to put up the hoardings and billboards asking Yunus to answer the Hindu atrocities and the killings that and rapes that are happening, demolition of temples that are happening. So tell us how did you do it all? And it has just gone up today, if I'm not mistaken. And what is your expectation out of that from the U.S. political system?
So I want to start by, acknowledging there are some great unsung heroes who are behind this initiative, like Devji, like Deepak Bajaji, and Bimalji, and others who are all part of the Ram Bhakta group. And they did a fundraising and asked people in the Ram Bhakta group, which has about 800 members, to contribute. And they even said if everyone gives just $20 each, it would be very helpful. And many people came forward and did. So now they are putting these billboards under the label of United Hindu Council. And so we're hoping that we can draw attention to all the atrocities that are being now imposed upon our fellow Hindus in Bangladesh, such as we know, more than 1,000 monks have been arrested, actually. And, as we know, Krishna Das has been arrested, but there's many more as well. And so we want to draw attention to this because in Bangladesh, they have banned the press from even talking about this. So nobody's talking about it. So how do we bring attention to it? And that's why the United Hindu Council is the one that has started this initiative. Thank you.
I mean, tell us more about it. Actually, what I want to say is that it's not easy to do so. As Ajayji was saying, money is the matter. $20 is matter. Our apathetic attitude, as Ajayji was saying, we are all right. Don't worry about it. Let's not rake up issues. We are fine as it is. But we did not realize the extent of damage that the whole thing was doing to us. And that's very important for us to figure out that have we figured out now? Or are we understanding that now it is the killings of Bangladesh Hindus that Hindus in America are awakening? What's happening? Both of you, please, whoever takes off first.
So a number of Hindus are still in denial. They just don't want to go there. That's where the problem is. But in our Ram Bhakta group, people are already awakened. And so they did respond. And that's how we are now putting up these billboards, under the auspices of the United Hindu Council, where these billboards will be moved from one part of the Bay Area to another where there is maximum traffic. And it took a lot of negotiating by the leaders of United Hindu Council to get this billboard to actually get situated. It was not easy to do that. And I hope you'll have Deepak ji and Dev ji on the show next time so they can tell you even more about it because they're in the trenches. They're the ones who are leading this fight.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for mentioning their names because acknowledgement is important. Most of the time we miss out on giving due credit to people who are actually fighting the whole battle, with soul and heart and mind and everything else. Ajayji, you have been part of VHPA for a very long time, Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America. And I remember in the Savera report that came about, what I find very interesting is, for example, Hindus for Human Rights. You know, I had tweeted about that. This is Hindu for Human Rights denies human rights to Hindus. Actually, they work towards that in the name of in the pompous declaration of their name. Likewise, Savera, it's a very nice name. But in the Savera report, they were talking about, even my name was mentioned as if that I'm a member of VHPA, which was false. and which was also the fact that I'm guilty by association. Mera ho gaya tha. They had put my name also in it, and I thought of, hey, this is at least they should acknowledge. At least I can say that I'm not a member, but VHPA has to say, yes, these people are not our members. So tell us that part of is very important because people expect response. And you say that, we can't reply to everything, which is correct. Resources are required to do that. But there comes a moment in time when a report like this is put out in the open, when na- false names are added, at least one response that the
So
names
that's why,
are interpreted by.
Vibhuti ji, our
Oh, yeah.
response is now longer than their report. Our
Okay.
response is about, their report is about 50, 45, 50 pages. Our response is 60 pages or
Yeah.
67 pages, depending on which report we are talking about.
Yeah.
But it takes us, because we have resource constraint.
Yes.
There is a, we have to come up with a systemic way of getting to the response. So what we have done now is, now we have created a mechanism by which we can respond. Otherwise, we are not as well funded as them. We don't have money pouring in from every direction. So we can't really have three people or five people or 10 people uh, dedicated to just cranking out a report per organization they have. And there are five of them working together on this. So you can imagine the amount of resources that they have. And so we can't really, and we don't really disclose who is our member, who is not our member. So we never either confirm or deny who is our member, who is not our member,
Okay.
because that's a slippery slope that we will not get into. Because every time, then they will just pick people out of the hat and just say, oh, come and deny if they're a member, they're not a member. That's, individuals can obviously do that. At organizational level, we can't really do that. And we have thousands and thousands of members. I mean, it's just we can't be getting to their level. But interestingly enough, they call the report Savera, which is daybreak or sunrise or something like that, and we are calling the report Grahana at Savera. That means they're covering they're shading the sun instead of letting the sun shine through. So it's really Grahana at Savera. And so I think that's a. But going back to what Gitaji was saying just about a minute ago, that there are people who are giving money for these targeted causes. I think that is true. For people, in Bay Area, for example, people have contributed, as she was saying, for putting up billboards. And there are other activities that what people. But I think what is really needed is creating a mechanism to build up the advocacy organizations that are not issue driven. So what we need is really a movement and not a knee-jerk reaction to something that happens. And our goal at VHPA and Hindu Pact and AHAD has always been to, there are certain issues that come up, they have temporal importance, and we take them up and we do our advocacy on that, because that's the need of the moment. SB 403 came up, and we have to respond to that, because that would be a long term permanent harm to all the Hindus. But our focus has been to build up this grassroots level advocacy movement, because we want to really come up to a stage where a lot of these issues don't even become issues, because if the Hindus are awakened, there is a formal advocacy movement, then I would think that 70-80% of these issues would not even see the light of the day. And so the effort has to be not on just these one off billboards, which is great, by the way. I'm a big supporter of that. But really, the emphasis has to be, how do we support these advocacy organizations like Hindu Pact, like AHAD, and others, not just those two, to have capacity. So, how do we build the capacity? So, it is a capacity building exercise that as a community we have to undertake.
Capacity building exercise. And as it's something like that, we have to kind of create a shakedown approach. There is, we need to shake down the Indian community, Hindu American community here, because when SB 403 was vetoed, a very prominent Indian American from Silicon Valley told me and Sanjay ji on a show that they were horrified and disappointed to know that more than 80% of the Hindu Americans or Indian Americans in Silicon Valley were either unawares of what SB 403 was, They did not have any, they thought, hame kuch nahi hoga, that attitude. And third, don't worry, it will come and go. So that apathy that comes in our community, why does that happen? Geeta ji, what's your thought on it? Why, where does that apathy come from? Forget about that fact that hum apna kaam kar rahe hain, we are doing well. But there is a thing called apathy. How can you not be aware of the surrounding that is happening around you? So you're living in California, you have to be aware of the coming earthquake. You got to be prepared for that. What is
It
that
was
reason for you? Your thoughts?
for a lot of Hindus, it was act of ignorance. They didn't bother to study the bill. They didn't bother to learn from those who had studied the bill. And they said, caste discrimination should not happen, so it's fine. But they didn't realize that this microcosmic targeting of Hindus would actually create reverse caste discrimination on us. So it was very difficult. I lost so many friendships, I'll say zillion, in trying
Right.
to educate. And many came around, and I've talked about that in these articles that I've just
Yes.
published, part one and part two already, and three to come, on how Hindus contributed to Trump's triumph. And I was told by others, because I've talked about 15 other Hindus like me who supported Trump, who wrote to me in this as their story. And 15 stories are in this article. And what they said was the same thing. The whole issue was, they said, how to convince people without losing the relationship with that person, because people would get offended. Even within families, there was so much dissonance when we talked about SB 403, leave alone with friends, because most Hindus tend to be leftist Democrats, and they just couldn't think that anything bad could come out of this. So it was a very difficult journey for us, those who were working to oppose SB 403. I really salute all the Karyakartas who worked so hard on behalf of the Hindu community.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ajay ji, your take on that. Why are we so apathetic? Why are we so disengaged?
Because there is really no threat uh, that
Really?
people can see. That people can see.
Ah,
So if my child is, if I'm doing well in my job, I have a nice house, maybe a vacation home, also three cars, a dog. My kids are doing well in school. After school, they're getting good jobs. Where is the threat? You Hindu advocates are just creating threat where none exists, and I think that is what is causing the apathy. Unless you have a clear and present danger, people will always think that there is no this all this thing is just made up to keep Hindu advocates busy. And so it behooves on us to actually explain to people that yes, there is a clear and present danger, you just don't see it. You don't see it because maybe um, you know you have just not taken one step forward. Now I'll give you an example. Sadhana, which is a companion organization, student organization to Hindus of Human Rights. Actually, they started with sadhana, and then they created the same person created Hindus for Human Rights. On their website, sadhana has a literature that says how to go and argue with your fundamentalist parents. But parents don't realize that what they're trying to really do is they're trying to separate your kids and their kids away from your Sanskriti, your culture, your dharma. But it's too far in the future. So people don't connect that this is, they are not, and Vibhuti ji, if you really think about it, they are not targeting second generation. So anyone who thinks that they're targeting second generation, they might be to some extent, but it's very hard to target second generation because second generation is connected with parents, with grandparents. They go to India more often, things like that. The real target is third generation. Okay, you have to. We have been saying this because we have done this analysis, we have done this research, we have done this study, and we have done it. We have compared it with other immigrant communities. Their target is not second generation. Their target is third generation. That means people who are, to begin with, within four generations, people lose their immigrant roots. And here they see a lot of opportunity that, okay, by that time, the grandparents are not as active in the lives. and all of these things are happening. So let us target them. They're not growing up in the second generation family environment. The parents are probably not going to insist as much that they go to bal vihar or they go to summer camps and all that. So that is where the real target is, and it's too far for people to see. So it's not really the apathy we have to do a better job at explaining to people that this is what the real target is.
I'm very glad to hear from you more than once that we have to do a better job. And that is, as aware citizens, concerned people, concerned faith, we have to do a better job. And as you said, it says only one thing: how deep is their plot? That according to you, they are targeting the future generations who will be lost forever. So, Gita ji,
So Vibhuti ji, I'll just say one thing if you don't mind.
please go
How
ahead.
deep is their plot? They get together even to talk about terminology on a full day meeting, or 2 days meeting, 3 days meeting. They do these meetings where they say, okay, what are we going to how are we going to divide up the Hindu organizations and attack them? What are the phrases that we are going to use? And they converge on these. That is the level of planning that goes into it.
The
So
example is very clear.
the word like bhakta doesn't come drop from the sky. The
Yeah.
word like bhakta requires multiple organizations sitting together for multiple days, discussing and conversing on what language to use. So, what language to use workshops are full day, 1 day, 2 day workshop that people hold in order to say that these are the words that we are going to use to attack. So, it is not like, okay, Gita ji will use one word. It's like, say, Hindu misia, and I will use the word Hindu hatred, and you will use the word Hindu phobia, and somebody else will use the word something else. It is all of us sitting together and say, for multiple days, not 1 day, for multiple days, and saying we are all going to use the word whatever it is that we decide, right? And
Yeah.
that is how advocacy, a good advocacy, is done.
That's so dangerous. I mean, sometimes you feel like a kid. What the hell is happening around us? So the advocacy is very important. Gita ji, I wanted to come to the other aspect of it all. Now that so many Indian Americans, Hindu Americans, I won't say Indian Americans alone, so many Hindu Americans are there in the Trump administration in significant positions. That has begun a new round of attack on us again. It's a new round of attack. You do good, you are damned. You don't do anything, you are still damned. So I saw tweets by people close to Trump once upon a time, Laura Loomer and others, who have begun to say that, oh, what is happening? We are putting Hindu Americans, the pagans, into the role, and that the Sri Ram person who has been the AI in charge, he has received wonderful endorsement from very powerful Americans who have said that this is the best guy who can come. We will have control on AI, but there is a mass sinister campaign as well. And I'm going to write to that, Laura Loomer, that hey, you want the brown coolies to remain coolies all their life, and if they succeed, you are envious of their success. I'm going to tweet that. But tell us, you are in the academia, in research, how does one address that entire thing? Apart from the fact that only Vivek and Tulsi have been very proud of their Hindu-ness, as I call it. Very proud of they wore their Hindu thing on their sleeves and fought on. And Tulsi is being attacked for being a Hindu. Think about it. That's what is we have to kind of a contest, even within Republican Party, whom we supported. Your take on this?
Absolutely, Vibhuti ji. With Tulsi Gabbard, for example, first I'll talk about Washington Post. It sent their Pulitzer Prize winning author, his name is John Swain, who also dismantled and spoke very negatively about the disinformation lab that was giving us such important
Correct.
information.
Correct.
And so the same guy has been sent to Hawaii to interview Tulsi's employees, ex-employees, former employees, to see if they can give them some dirt on her. Can you imagine the height of going after someone because she's Hindu? That's what they're doing. And so, and getting back to the right, yes, on the extreme right, there is an extreme right Christian wing that we worry about too. It's not like just because now Trump is here as our next president, that all problems have gone. No, we have to stay on top of things. We have to have a seat at the table, or we will become the menu, because the extreme right is also anti-Hindu. And so that's the wing that always does these negative things, anti-Hindu hate things. Like in Houston, you remember that big Hanuman statue,
Yes.
deity they had put, and those guys came after them, right? And so when they called the cops, then they would run away. So we're worried. We're like caught between the rock and the hard place. We've
Right.
got the leftist, Marxist, Islamist, cabal on the left, and then we've got the extreme right Christian. Not all of Christians are like that. I must point that out. Not
Yes.
all of Trump voters are like that. But there is a small, far right Christian wing that we have to be concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, as I come to the close, I want to both of you to make your closing statement. And my favorite question always is, knowing what we know now, where do we go from here? So, Ajay, what would you do? I mean, look at it this way. They are so smart that they name the organization or the report as Savera. So that if somebody sees something Savera, they feel, oh, wow, that's a nice word, let's go for it. Or Hindus for Human Rights, which I say is working very hard towards denying Hindus human rights. How does one contest that? Do you match them or you take a completely different way? What is your take on this, or how would you go forward with that?
Our approach has been a combination, a fusion approach, a combination approach, and that is why I come back to what I talked about at the beginning, that we have to have a systemic way of doing advocacy. What I mean by systemic way of doing advocacy is we have to build the advocacy organizations for ground up. B, we have to make the community aware of the dangers, of the of the attacks that are happening, of the Hinduphobia that is prevalent, and really sensitize the community towards what is happening. C, we have to have a solid educational effort targeted towards second and especially towards the third generation, to show them that this is the generation that is in the most danger place. Four, we have to make the corporations aware. So for example, you can take a simple announcement that happened during the COVID times, where Celine Gonder, who was a very well-known doctor, epidemiologist, I think a virologist, epidemiologist, who was part of the COVID task force. And as soon as her name was announced, she was attacked in New York City. She was attacked as someone from high caste, and and they were told, and people said that, oh, she's using her last name like Gonder. Or the previous, the CEO of Twitter, when he was announced, they said, "Oh, look, another high caste Brahmin who has now become a CEO." I think people want to find any way to bring Hindus down from whatever achievements they have. The reason is that then your kids, especially your grandkids, will come and say, "Look, I'll take the path of least resistance. I'll just say that I'm not a Hindu." So the importance of Hindu identity, importance of preserving the Hindu identity, these have to be infused at every level. And that is not because we are proselytizing like the other religions. We have something to contribute that is net positive to American society. If Hindus are not there to propagate that, who is going to propagate that
That's
positivity?
right. Very
And
true.
that is why we want to have this multifaceted approach to countering the hate that is coming out to the other side, because we have nothing but positivity to contribute, not just to this society but to this world.
Right. Geetaji, your final word on this.
Yes, Vibhuti Ji, I'd like to make two comments and then close with an inspirational quote.
Right.
Um, so the two comments are one is, I ask with folded hands to all of the Hindu American community to please support the Hindu advocacy organizations, including Americans for Hindus, for which, as I said, I'm VP of Communications, and it's a volunteer job. It's not a paid job, just so everyone knows. And so why I say that is because this is a super PAC that is non-partisan. So we work with both parties. We work with both sides of the aisle. Because remember, when we are going to confirm our Republican nominees from President Trump, we still need the confirmations from the Democratic side. So we need to work both sides of the aisle, right? So that's why, and I just say give $10 a month. That's a cup of coffee for the, returning every month. $10. It's nothing, right? For most people. We can afford that. And my second comment is that, recently on December 8th, there was a meeting held at the United Nations in Geneva on minority rights. And in that, the CARES Global had a lead, Richa Gautamji and Dr. Mitraji. And Dr. Mitraji made a beautiful quote after presenting the atrocities on Hindus in Bangladesh. And so I'll end with that quote now. He said in his closing words, which resonated with all, if we fail to protect the Hindus of Bangladesh today, we fail humanity itself. This is not just about one country. It is about the future of human rights everywhere. Let us rise to the challenge and stop this blatant crime staring at us every single day. With that, thank you, Vibhuti Ji, for this opportunity.
Thank you, both of you. And I wanted to make my closing statement to the people who are watching here and to everybody around here. This is a very sensitive matter because we are. 4 years ago, I had done a show, Are Hindus Facing an Existential Threat? Because things that I knew then, I talked about it on my show. And people are in a kind of a state of mind, hame kuch nahi hoga. Sanatan lives. Sanatan will survive. And I have questioned this part to very learned people. Does Sanatan survive in Kashmir? Does Sanatan survive in Sindh? Does Sanatan survive in Bangladesh? Does Sanatan survive in Afghanistan? We have Mahabharat heritage out there. This is just the neighboring countries. Does Sanatan survive in Bangladesh? None. Does Sanatan survive in Oasis, Hyderabad? Think about it, or many coastal areas where Sanatan doesn't live. So let's not be Coop Manduk or the ostrich that sees no threat to himself just by putting the head in the sand. So, guys, awaken. The second part, like both of you, appeal to people to give some $10 a month. This reminds me of my very dear friend, Dr. Omendra Ratnu, who floated the concept of dharmansh. Do your dharma ka ansh. And I say this that this man, Dr. Omendra Ratnu, has definitely appealed very sincerely, to which I add only one thing. Yes, every single Hindu effort will require money. You cannot give money to everybody. That also we know. What I want to say to you is adopt a policy that whose approach I like. That's it. If you like Hindu Pact and Ajayji's thought process, support him. If you like Geetaji's support process, support her and her efforts. But do not attack another Hindu group because you do not agree with them. And to that, I propose, and I have been talking about it, is my theory, is a 3CM. 3CM stands for collaborate, cooperate, coordinate, and mobilize. Do your bit in the individual capacity as well as collective capacity. If you do not, then you end up, as Geetaji said or Ajayji said, you become the menu. You become targeted. And third and the final thing I'll say to every Indian, every Hindu, get engaged in your local communities. Be aware of the surroundings that you are living in. Don't think that just because I'm here, I'm fine. Just because I'm in a gated community, I'm okay. No, you are not. You are also next in line. Think about it from that point of view, regardless of where you are. So, with these words, I want to close today. I always say, I end my shows by saying, invoking Satyame Vijayate. And Satya, to triumph, you and I have to stand up. So thank you, Geeta ji, for joining today at a short notice, and Ajay ji for bringing out the
Thank
entire
you.
report. Please send the report. We will put it on the Jaipur Dialogue
We'll
website.
definitely do.
You
Thank
have
you.
to look at it. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Namaste.
much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Namaste.
you. Namaste.